So I wanted to talk about this because we talked about Slay the Spire 2 a while back. With the whole Anita Sardines being featured in the credits, and the game getting flooded with negative reviews talking about, if they knew that Anita Sarkeesian was involved with this game, they would never have purchased it. They were getting, refunds, and it was a whole thing, right? It was a whole thing. And now, Ghost of Yotei, I did briefly mention Ghost of Yotei. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I did briefly mention this game when we were talking about Slay the Spire 2. And the fact that, this game had its fair bit of, issues, with the whole, voice actress politics stuff, saying, I think she said that she was her and her husband were part of Antifa, if the old memory serves right. The reaction of their staff after Charlie Kirk and, all of that negative press really harmed the game, and nobody really gave a shit about the game to begin with. So, throw all that stuff on top of the negative PR. Yeah, this game kind of got fucked. And apparently they're like shutting down support for multiplayer or something. I'm not too familiar. Vera's gonna, go more into detail, but it's not going great for Ghost of Yotei, apparently, which I'm not I'm not exactly surprised to see, but it's nice to see at the same time.
Since its announcement, Ghost of Yotei had faced a lot of backlash. People were not happy that they replaced Jin Sakai. People were unimpressed with the lead actress choice. Then you found out about her activism. The
Antifa
mentality of a lot of people at this studio when Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. Upset a lot of gamers. And when it
rest in peace to the goat, man.
Finally came out, a lot of people felt that it was a bit underwhelming. But now we are finding out that
I did see that some people were enjoying the game. Like I think Kumo was playing Ghost of Yotei, and she was enjoying the game. Right, and it goes sort of back to sort of what I said with Slay the Spire 2. Like I'm not gonna fault anybody if they want to play the game, right? Because from what I've heard, it's a decent game. It's enjoyable to some people. And, it's whatever, right? I don't really mind or anything like that. But, yeah, I'm not going to personally support it because of the whole activism and Charlie Kirk stuff, right? I'm not going to support the game, and I will encourage others not to support the game as well.
Ghost of Yotei's Legends multiplayer mode is already losing support after just a few months, and people are
really
pointing and laughing.
A few months, really?
But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, there are plenty of games out there that have activists working on them, and a lot of the times people do just sort of look the other way, because I understand that one or two activists on a project doesn't mean that the entire game is tainted and ruined, but with the lead actress's activism,
it honestly very heavily depends, right? And it's especially when you go back to the issue of the you'll have games that aren't exactly bad, right? You'll have solid games come out. But people learn that there are activists, or X person is involved with said project, so they don't want to support it, right? And it's it really just goes back to what will the majority of gamers do. At the end of the day, that's really what matters. And, just look at what's happening with Slay the Spire 2, right? Slay the Spire 2 is the perfect example of this, right? a lot of people are enjoying the game and saying that the game is good, but the fact that Anita Sardines is involved with it, even if she played no real major role in it and didn't really make any like significant woke changes or anything like that, even if that's not present, the simple fact that her name is attached to it is going to kill the game because she's just an incredibly disliked woman. Nobody likes her. Nobody likes feminist frequency.
Some of the people on the development team had made when the entire Charlie Kirk
Yep.
situation happened, and with the
Charlie Kirk stuff to me was the biggest part. That was the biggest part, and the activist of the voice actress with Antifa, that was more or less the icing on the cake of it, right? But yeah, to me the Charlie Kirk stuff was the biggest deal breaker with Ghost of Yotei.
marketing material being very rude and insulting towards people who would prefer Jin Sakai over Atsu. All of that led to people refusing to play this.
Yep.
And I know that a lot of people had said, oh my gosh, it probably is doing good because Ghost of Tsushima did so good, and surely there are people that are going to buy this. And yeah, I mean, it did sell. It's not like it completely failed. But you
Yeah.
would think that if this game did phenomenally for Sony, that more
I mean, I think Ghost of Yotei more or less was riding on the success of Ghost of Tsushima. So I thought that Ghost of Yotei would probably sell decently just because of Ghost of Tsushima, right? So I thought that it was probably gonna maybe like sell like 1 million-ish copies. I don't know how many copies the game actually sold, but that was more or less my estimate. But I did not expect, especially with the backlash and how little people really seemed to care. Nobody really seemed to give too much of a shit about Ghost of Yotei. I didn't really see too much like hype around the game when it actually dropped, and then throw negative PR on top of that. I did not expect the game to be a booming success like Ghost, right?
people would have checked out the multiplayer mode, and well, a few months after release, it is already losing support, which is not a good look.
Wow.
So here's one of the articles.
Yeah, that's not great.
Legends is already getting its last new content update. Its multiplayer extravaganza Legends launched on March 10th.
Extravaganza, huh?
Follow up to predecessor Ghost of Tsushima's own Legends mode. Yotei's promised a brand new vibe, doubling down on the supernatural aspects while sending players into what developer Sucker Punch hoped would be a more immersive and challenging experience. So if you don't really know what it was a set of cooperative player versus enemy modes that focused around teams clearing waves of enemies and some combat-based puzzle solving. There are 3 game modes in Yotei Legends, although as of this writing, only 2 were available. Of course, by this point,
so I guess the third one's going to be the final one?
But yeah, I mean, it was a multiplayer-focused experience, which I don't think was a massive draw anyway. I don't think that there would be a behemoth amount of people that would play this, but Tsushima's lasted for quite a while, and people did really like it, even if, the core audience for it was kind of small. Whether you agree that Sucker Punch hit the mark on any of the above, it's not a great sign that Legends is wrapping up active production now, just 2 months after its release. By contrast, Tsushima Legends was actively supported for over a year and a half. Does this
Yotei is cooked. Wow. Yeah, that is a big fucking a few months and a year and a half. Yeah, the game is cooked. Holy. Wow. Yeah. That is not good. That is not a good sign. Do we have the numbers on how many copies the game actually sold? I'm very curious now, right? Cuz damn, that is wow.
Or does it mean they've weighed what it would take to deliver to players what they'd rather have from the mode and decided it's too costly a venture? Maybe. Either way, it is.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was that, right? Depending on how well the game sold, the base game sold, depending on how well that sold, and what type of, I guess, player base or core audience they have been able to maintain, I would not be surprised if they financially did not see a financial benefit or reason to continue this, right? Especially if they're spending a large quantities of cash, right? That green, that guapo, that paper that makes the world go round, to make these, I guess, multiplayer expansions, I guess.
Is a bummer. Now they try to cope and say, oh, it's not a reflection of the main game's success and that game has done so good. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying that it sold no copies. We do know that it sold 3.3 million copies in its first month of.
Yeah, so 3.3 million copies, a little bit more than I thought. But yeah, it makes sense, right? Like I said, piggybacking on the success of Tsushima, right? That's really the big, right? Because I never really saw like super crazy outrage about Yotei, but that you did see Ghost of Tsushima everywhere, right? When that game, it was huge, right? It was massive. Everybody loved that game when it released, and you didn't really see that for Yotei. So I did think that it would probably sell a good amount of copies, but I did not think that it would live up to Tsushima. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they broke the million, right? I don't know if they wanted to particularly sell 3.3 million though.
Release, but now after that we don't know what it sold. Has it only sold another million copies? Maybe it's doubled that and it's sold almost 7 million copies. They haven't announced.
Hey, 6-7
announced it, and so I think that probably means that the 3.3 was the core audience, and maybe it has sold a few more copies, but I can't imagine the player base has skyrocketed. That is for sure. But yeah, hearing that they are already dropping support for this mode is pretty wild because it hasn't been around that long, and they're not like shutting servers down, and it's not going to be inaccessible. It's just that they're not going to put any more developers on this project. They're not going to put any more money into this.
Makes sense.
Make any new content, and then it's just going to wind down, and they probably will not end up promoting it anymore. Not that they even necessarily did. I mean, when it came out, there were a few posts about it, but that was basically it. This article from geeksandgamers.com dives into it a little bit more, saying if Ghost of Yotei was as popular as gaming outlets claim and Legends had exploded into a major multiplayer ecosystem with strong retention, ongoing monetization potential, and a massive active player base, it would be unusual for Sony and Sucker Punch to walk away from major updates after only a single raid patch. Sony previously claimed the game significantly contributed to its earnings, and portions of the gaming press quickly framed that as proof of the title being a major success. However, much of that reporting focused on revenue contribution rather than direct unit sale comparisons with Tsushima. Yeah, they're always going to try to manipulate the narrative and release pieces and bits.
Naturally, right? They don't want to show that their game was they don't want to admit failure, right?
$70 game pricing, inflation in the industry's increased reliance on digital deluxe editions, higher revenue doesn't automatically mean Yotei matched or exceeded the long-term player engagement of its predecessor. IGN awarded the game an 8 out of 10 score, praising its fluid action and samurai fantasy, which is wild because IGN also recently gave Mixtape a 10 out of 10. Now, I personally do not think that they actually stand by this 10 out of 10. I don't think that they genuinely gave this a 10 out of 10 because they enjoyed it. I think that they wanted to stir up controversy, and I think that they wanted to try to get clicks, get attention, and they wanted to stay on Annapurna's good side. That sure is just a conspiracy.
Yeah, personally, I think that they're paid actors, chat. Right, because if you look, if you go like a deep dive, right, like the CEO is literally the daughter of Oracle, right, of the CEO of Oracle, and right, that's the guy whose son, I think he owns Paramount. I think he owns Paramount. I believe so. I could be wrong on that, but I do think he owns Paramount. And the brother, from at least from the little bit I've seen, I think the brother is pretty based. Right, I think he's, he's not really big on like the ideology stuff, right? He wants to do what's gonna make money, right? And that I prefer that, right? Don't insert your ideology. Just make something good. That's a whole different tangent, though. But yeah, like this woman has literally infinite capital at her disposal, right? So I don't think it would be far fetched to say that they would pay off a bunch of these reviewers to ensure that they would get super duper high fucking scores.
Conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, maybe these
But yeah, like that's my tinfoil hat here, right? Give me my tinfoil hat, baby.
Losers did believe that this was a 10 out of 10, but I don't know how anybody really could. It also says the situation highlights a growing divide between gaming media narratives and actual player enthusiasm. Yeah, since I don't know, 2 weeks after release, and then the one post that Sony had made about Yotei's sales, I haven't heard anybody talk about this game. Like,
Yeah.
all of these months later, nobody's praising it still, nobody's referencing.
Yeah, like I said, chat. Nobody really cared about Yotei. You just didn't really see that much interest in the game. There wasn't like this that you didn't really see hype, right? It died off really fucking quickly, right? Like after the whole drama stuff with the voice actress and the Charlie Kirk stuff, I never really heard about Yotei after that, right? I would just like occasionally see, here and there streamers or VTubers that I follow would be playing the game, whatever. But outside of that, I just never, after that, I never really saw people talking about the game, no real interest in the game. People weren't really still praising the game. You just didn't really see that. Like, this game, this game definitely underperformed, in my opinion, right? Even though it sold, let's be generous, let's say it sold maybe like 7-ish million copies. I don't think this game performed the way Sony was hoping it would perform. I think they were hoping for a lot more.
I haven't heard anybody talk about this game. Like, all of these months later, nobody's praising it still, nobody's referencing it still. Like, it came and went so quickly, which is just so interesting. And sure, part of that is that there are new games releasing basically every single day, and major AAA games releasing every single week, but it didn't really stand the test of time like Tsushima did. So if the base game wasn't even able to survive,
it lasted
by this
quite a
point
bit,
in time,
and people loved
the
that
base game wasn't even able to stay at the forefront of people's memories, it's pretty obvious that a spin-off multiplayer mode like Legends would have came and gone extremely quickly, and that's seemingly exactly what happened. So I'm curious to see if the media is now going to come out and cope about this and say, oh my gosh, you guys are just toxic and you're losers
I don't know,
for
chat.
calling this out, and this was always bound to happen.
I don't think they even
But
remember this
again,
game.
Tsushima's Legends mode was supported for around a year and a half when this is only surviving for 2 months. Yeah, that is
2
a
months.
very bad.
Wow,
It does not help the narrative
2
that the
months.
media's tried to push that Yotei is way more popular. People love Yotei way more.
Yeah.
But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video.
Yeah,
Let
that's
everyone know your
rough.
thoughts in the
That
comments
is
below.
rough.
If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again.
I'll give it a
in the
like,
next
Vera.
video really soon.
Yeah, chat. I mean, damn. 2 months. That is great. 2 months compared to a year and a half. Big fucking difference. But I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna repeat myself too much. It's about what I expected, right? I definitely think this game was a flop for Sony. I don't think this game performed the way they were hoping. I think they were hoping to have another smashing hit like Ghost of Tsushima. Did not happen. They ended up with Yotei, which nobody really gave a shit about, and nobody really gives a shit about today. Rough. Tough. I don't know what to tell you. Get wrecked, I guess, bozos. Total Chud victory once again.